Hey everyone, I'm Chun, and today, which you can probably guess from the title of this video, I will be discussing about my process for the piece Strife. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. First thing to go over is how important it is to have a good foundation for your work. In my recent works, I've placed more importance on my line work as the foundation of my works. But the points and tips in this video can be applied to paintings as well as other art forms. So to get started, I like to create a rhythm in my line works, something that makes the eye dance around an image, but not so chaotic that there's a total lack of focus. Having some negative space, such as the outer circle past the tigers and the inner circle in the middle, gives the eye a resting point from the hecticness within the piece. I usually like to achieve this rhythm very beginning when I'm sketching. Typically, I use simple recognizable shapes such as triangle, squares, and in this case, circles, as a foundational composition point for my images. From there, I tend to gesture around ideas, and for personal pieces, I like to find a nice flow and just generally draw what I think looks cool. Another important aspect in line work is contrast. For this piece, in order to contrast the long, flowy, hectic lines of the main figures, the tigers, I used short, straight lines with cross-hatching. There are many ways an artwork can show a contrast, such as light and dark, warm and cold tones, object and space, to name a few. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record while doing my line work, but I do plan on doing a separate video on the techniques and ways I draw my lines, if anyone is interested. Also, for those asking, yes, my line work is done 100% in Photoshop. Now on to coloring. I place my line work at the very top layer under the layer mode multiply. I do this so I wouldn't have to worry about accidentally coloring over my lines or having it be merged in my coloring layers. I used the paint bucket tool to drop in a warm shade for my background, as I want the piece to have a warm color scheme. From there, I like to work from back to front, that is, coloring the background elements first and putting those layers all the way at the top, so I would have a much easier time when coloring the more intricate parts of the illustration. At this stage, I'm blocking in all of my shapes as well as establishing color relations between figures and elements. I often use the lasso tool, L, on my keyboard, to block in my colors, but I do free-handed if the space is too intricate. Right now, I'm deciding the tones I want to use by adjusting and experimenting with different hues by way of the hue and saturation adjustment, Control U on the keyboard. For the flames, I planned on it being a flat saturated tone to really stand out from the cell shading of the tigers. The red also contrasted nicely with the desaturation of the piece. As I go ahead, I like to use curve adjustment layers to further control my color scheme and contrast in order for a more balanced piece. I also use brightness and contrast layers in the same way. These adjustment layers can be found at the bottom of your layer menus when you press the half circle icon. To keep my eyes fresh, I like to adjust the opacity as well as turn on and off layers to see what kind of impact certain elements have or have not in the piece. Flipping the canvas horizontally is also a great way of giving a different perspective for your piece, as it can shine a new light to things that have been overworked and things that haven't been worked enough. For shading, I tend to go with multiply or overlay layers. I tend to contrast warm undertones with cool shading and vice versa. For cell shading, I generally use an asymmetrical flat brush that's able to rotate to give me more freedom in my strokes. An important aspect in shading is having a consistent light source. For this piece, I chose a top-down and front lighting. A tool that really helps me in my process is the Rotate tool, R, on the keyboard. It's a great tool that minimizes the strain of drawing a difficult angle on a tablet. As I go on, I try to contrast the warm areas with cool shading and the cool areas with warm shading. I airbrushed a warm, light color on a color dodge layer on top of my lines to lessen the harshness of the lines as well as lighten up the piece. For my final touches, I like to add in textures to get away from a clean digital look and to emulate traditional media. And that's it for my process on the piece Strife. I just want to thank everyone for all your support on my channel. This is the first time I tried editing, and I hope it wasn't too bad. If you guys would like to see more on this channel, please like, comment, or subscribe. Also, I do plan on doing a Q&A video, so if you have any questions, leave a question below with the hashtag Q&A. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in to this channel and to my streams.